Good morning, friends and enemies. We finally have a semi-concrete, it's still drying a little bit, update on the Rashee Rice suspension. And in this video, real quick, we're going to recap what Adam Schefter said about the suspension, and then I'm going to talk through where I moved Rashee Rice in my fantasy rankings based on this news. Right up to this point, we are estimating, we are guessing how many games is he going to get, when does the suspension start, all of that kind of stuff. Adam Schefter just tweeted this out. He said, ESPN sources, Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice is expected to have his disciplinary hearing with the NFL on Tuesday, September 30th in New York. This means that Rice now is likely to be able to play the first 4 weeks of this season before any potential discipline is imposed for his role in a multi-car crash in Dallas during the 2024 season. So naturally, I got tweeted at about 4,000 times, and I wanted to give you guys an update about how I'm thinking about the situation currently. So I tweeted this out. You guys can go follow me on Twitter if you want. I'm just going to talk through the tweet basically where I'm approaching this situation from. So first things first, this is the NFL disciplinary hearing, meaning like this is not a court case. This is not a civil lawsuit or whatever. Like this is the meeting that they have to decide his suspension, which would mean the suspension would start immediately after that. September 30th, that Tuesday, is post week 4. So you have the first 4 games, and then September 30th would be the Tuesday going into week 5. So if he is suspended, that would mean it would start in week 5. The Chiefs have a week 10 bye. So depending on the suspension length, this is when he will be back in your fantasy lineups. If it's a 4-game suspension, you're looking at week 9 at Buffalo. If it's a 5-game suspension, then you do have that week 10 bye, meaning you won't get him back into your lineup until week 11, which is at Denver. Tough game to return to. If it's a 6-game suspension, week 12 versus Indy. If it's a 7-game suspension, week 13 at Dallas. That would be sexy. 8-game suspension, week 14 versus Houston. Now, here's a strong caveat that I want to throw at you guys, right? I have no idea what the actual length of this suspension is going to be. And I think that is still by far and away the most important part of any Rashee Rice analysis. And we don't have that key piece of information. I don't know if there's a likelihood that this is longer than 8 games. I don't know if there's a likelihood that it is shorter than 4 games. I'm sure the likelihood exists for both sides of that spectrum. And we're literally just like throwing out estimates of a 4 to 8 game range based on precedent. I don't know if there's a chance that this disciplinary thing gets, pushed aside altogether. I don't know if there's a chance that this meeting that's taking place in week 5 also gets pushed back. None of us know that. If you go on Twitter, it's basically the same recycled take that every single person has had so far. And that's saying that it's tougher for a mid-season suspension on your fantasy team than it is an early season suspension. And the reasons are quite obvious. It's like there are no bye weeks that you're dealing with from weeks 1 through 4. They start this year in week 5. So once Rice's suspension gets handed down, assuming it starts in week 5, then you're dealing with other players on your roster. Like not only do you have to hold Rice on your roster, right? Like maybe some of you guys have an IR spot that allows you to put Rice in there and then this whole problem doesn't really matter for you. But if it doesn't, if the IR spot is only for injuries or it's only for IR actual players who are like, on the pup or whatever, then it's one less roster spot for you to hold on to dudes on the end of your bench. You're also dealing with more injuries, most likely by the time you're in week 4, 5, 6, right? Like injuries start to happen when the regular season ramps up. So there's a chance on your roster you have, 2 guys dealing with injuries plus a guy on a bye, and now you add Rashee Rice to it. So your bench gets really thin really quickly. So that's the obvious case of why this suspension starting week 5 is worse than starting in week 1. There's also the chance, like I said, if he gets an 8-game suspension, which is what most people are assuming is the cap to it, which we don't know. If it's higher than that, if it's 9 games, you're going into week 15, which is when most people start their fantasy playoffs. If it's 10 games, you're going into week 16. There's a chance that he gets out of the disciplinary hearing and it's 2 games or 3 games, and that's great. There's a chance that what happens if a tweet comes out, Adam Schefter says, Rashee Rice is suspended for the remainder of the season. Who knows? I don't know how the NFL thinks about this stuff. What if the product that the Chiefs put on the field is so good from weeks 1 through 4, and a lot of it is because the offense is funneling through Rashee Rice, that they're less inclined to give him a longer suspension? Because I think the NFL probably likes when the Chiefs are really good, and they're an exciting team to have on TV, and they are always amongst the league leaders in primetime games. I think they have 6 this year, maybe even more than that. I'm pretty sure they're tied, or if not, the sole team with the most primetime games. That's a very tinfoil hat theory, but listen, nobody knows shit. Adam Leviton, who I think has a very level head in the industry, and I think he gives good takes, he tweeted out, Establish the Run, his brand, is projecting a 6-gamer for Rashee Rice, give or take. And I think that's reasonable based on the precedent that we've seen with infractions that are like this. But again, if there's anything that I've learned in this space, it is that more often than not, we're just completely wrong when it comes to legal things. What happens is there's a couple guys on Twitter who have like law degrees that I think are very well intended and are just giving their opinion on the situation, but they don't have any context behind the curtains. They don't know any of the discussions that are happening. They don't know anything that's happening within the legal process as it pertains to this particular case. They give their opinion and then everyone on Twitter just runs with that and assumes it's law, no pun intended. And then people run with that for months until we hear something that's not the same as that. And it's completely different, which is what almost always happens in these cases. But like I said at the start, the most important part of this is not the fact that it's midseason. That matters. Like, I do think it does matter here because it does have a slight chance of hurting your roster more. It does have a very slight chance of getting into the playoff picture there, but the length of the suspension is 95 times more important than when the suspension actually happens. In order to make room for Rashee Rice on your bench, you're letting go of your worst player, right? So it's like, yes, we all love having a Kyle Williams or a Trey Harris on the upside projection of what they might become, but there's a reason that those guys get drafted in the 13th, 14th, 15th round is because the likelihood of them hitting is so low. It's not like you have to drop a real starter in your lineup in order to have room for Rashee Rice. So that being said, I did give Rashee Rice a very slight dock in my rankings. In full PPR, down from wide receiver 24 to wide receiver 26. So I'm not docking him an incredible amount. Again, we didn't get concrete information. If we knew that it was like, okay, this is going to be an 8-week suspension, if they didn't even tell us when the suspension started, but they gave us an 8-week suspension, that would be me moving Rashee Rice from wide receiver 24 to like 36. You know what I mean? Like, that's much more important to me. So right now, he moves down from wide receiver 24 to wide receiver 26. I have as my wide receiver 24 in PPR Xavier Worthy. So I have his teammate ahead of him. I have Jameson Williams at wide receiver 25, Rice at 26, DJ Moore at 27, Rome Odunze at 28. Rashee Rice is still my 53rd ranked player overall in one quarterback PPR league. So I'm still looking at him in the middle of the 5th round. I get that that's super risky. And maybe if you take someone within the first 4 rounds, that's also really risky. Whether that's someone attached to like Matt Stafford with his back, whoever that you deem more risky than safe, then maybe you shy away from Rashee Rice. Overall, I think you're going to see a lot more fluff on Twitter than actual helpful analysis. So I think it's just best to keep a level head. I don't think you should change your entire way you were looking at Rashee Rice based on what we heard today. Because we still, I'm sure by the time that hearing actually happens, we'll hear 1 or 2 more updates that completely, shift the way that we're thinking about this. But I know a lot of y'all have your drafts within the next like couple of weeks. And, if you wanted my opinion, this is it. He's the 53rd ranked player for me. I'm sure he'll move up and down over the next couple of weeks as other injuries happen or people break out in preseason games and whatnot. And all of my rankings are available right now in our draft guide on BDGE.co. It's got PPR, half PPR standard, super flex, tight end premium, all that stuff's in there, as well as my must draft players, every player that I'm fading, the preseason recap write-ups that I do that are in depth on like snaps and routes and all that kind of stuff that I think are useful takeaways for fantasy football. You can go grab that on BDGE.co at full price, but you could also get it for a very, 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 very discounted price when you're on the website, BDGE.co. Click on the partner offers button in the top right. And if you qualify, you'll get it for just $10. So go check that out. If you enjoyed the update, I will make sure I keep you updated on anything big that happens in the fantasy space throughout the summer. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video if you liked the video, and I will see y'all tomorrow. Smoochies.